Hello, everybody. Hi, hi, hi. If you guys can hear me, feel free to drop a message in the chat. Welcome to a really exciting webinar. Super excited to have you all here with us today. Um, really quickly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Nicole Gifford. I am part of the team here at GlossGenius, and today we are presenting an event that I have been super excited about ever since we started planning it. So I'm so thrilled to jump in. So for the next hour, we are going to be really focused on the real math behind building a seven-figure salon, which I know is a very hot and exciting topic. We're not going to be kind of just chatting motivation. We're going to be chatting systems. And I'm really excited to have a guest here who's done it all herself. And now she helps a ton of other owners do the same thing. I am going to introduce her in 1 second, so forgive the suspense, but quick housekeeping for you guys. This whole event is being recorded. So if you can't stay the entire time, no worries. We'll send you the replay. And I also want to share a little housekeeping that we are going to have a live Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, you can drop them throughout. We'll probably address a few of them as we go. And then, other than that, if we have time, we'll circle back around to them at the end. So again, the chat is there for you. But okay, with that, let me introduce our very special guests. So Terra Harvell is a 17-year industry veteran, the founder and CEO of Strata Salon Systems, Harper Ellis Salons, and Harper Ellis Hair Co., a hair extension company that she actually scaled to 8 figures. Terra's own salon generates 1.5 million in revenue a year, so she knows a thing or two about our topic. And Terra, I'm so glad that you're here. Thanks for being with us.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here. I'm just excited to talk to my people. I mean, you guys, salon owners, hairstylists, you guys are my people. So I'm so excited for today.
Yes, we love that. Well, in the spirit of what Terra just shared about our community, before we jump in, we always love to get a pulse check on who is with us at these events. So in the chat, drop your name, where you're joining from, and what you do, because we always love to see who is with us. I see some typers, and I see some people already reaching out from California, El Paso, Arkansas. Oh my gosh, from Minnesota. Welcome. Colorado in the house, 2 in a row. Welcome, Chelsea. Amazing. Mindy from Kansas, Julian from Florida. Okay, we got folks from all over the place. Thank you guys so much for being with us. And I always love to say, too, this chat is a great place to connect with fellow owners. So feel free to kind of chat about everything you're hearing and connect with each other. This is a part of the fun of it. So thank you all. Okay, so we are going to be diving into some really exciting and actionable strategies. But first, like we often do here, let's start at the beginning. So, Terra, you didn't exactly get into this industry for the love of hair exactly. So tell us, how it all started for you.
I love this question. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I am actually, talk about freedom, and I know we're going to talk about that today. I am on vacation with my son. We are in the Bahamas this week, and we are just having a ton of fun. But I'll talk about that in a little bit and what that means to me, because I haven't always been the hairstylist and the industry professional that could just up and take a vacation like I have basically in the last week. And so, I am just excited to talk to you guys today. I've been in this industry for 17 years, and I've had a lot of highs and I've had a lot of lows. And, I know we're going to talk a lot about, building millionaires inside of this industry today, and what that takes. And I'm going to talk a lot about, the freedom. We throw that word around a lot. We talk about what that looks like in our industry. We talk about being independent. We talk about, W-2. We kind of go back and forth. But I am just pumped to pour into you guys and tell you what I've learned along the way. So, yeah.
Love that. It's so amazing. And I'm curious, Terra, your story and how you got started in the industry. Like, what was the early part of your journey that kind of led you to the point where you are right now?
Yeah. So, of course, been in the industry for 17 years, and I actually moved out to Las Vegas to assist someone that, I knew was going to be my mentor. And I knew early on that looking up to someone that had the career that I wanted to have was the move that I needed to make. And so I actually, from Fort Smith, Arkansas, packed up everything I owned in my Mitsubishi Eclipse. And I remember $300 in my bank account. And my mom said, "Hey, I have about $1,000 on a credit card." And I drove all the way out to Las Vegas. I found a roommate on Craigslist and basically started working minimum wage. And that was the story.
Yeah.
And I worked minimum wage for about 2 years. After about a year and a half into that, I started, earning tips and making a little bit more money. Moved out to Las Vegas and, worked for a minimum wage and was an assistant. And here's the thing is I had two directions inside of my career, and I learned that very early on. I assisted a hairstylist that did all color, and I assisted a hairstylist that did extensions. And it was very clear to me, going up to the front desk and being able to see the difference in the payout. One stylist spent a couple of hours with a guest. The other stylist spent not much longer than a couple of hours. And both, one was $250, one was $3,000. And so, that's what she mentioned earlier
Yeah.
was I think a lot of, hairstylists are very cliche about, I love making people feel beautiful. And don't get me wrong, I love that as well.
Mhm.
But it was the math for me. It was I could make more than a doctor and a lawyer in one day, especially with high ticket services. So yeah, that's how I got started.
But amazing, Tara. So, um, I know you were just chatting about the sort of early journey, and I'm curious about, when you started to feel that freedom. What was that part of the journey like for you? How did you kind of return to the salon and rethink things to start to build back some of that freedom?
Oh my gosh, not for a very long time. And one thing that I always talk about with hairstylists is at the end of the day, we really are tied to client. And that's, to kind of catch you up with my entire story, after leaving Las Vegas, I did move back home and, stood behind the chair as an independent stylist. And I ended up doing around $750,000 in revenue, working, 4 days a week. And that was an incredible career. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to, discourage anyone listening to this being like, wow, I'm not anywhere close to that. Because, yes, I worked a lot of those 4 days. I was working, 12 to 14 hour days and no lunch break and all those things. And I'm not here to glorify that kind of like work style. And so what I learned really early on is even after producing, $750,000 behind the chair, I still didn't have freedom because the minute that I got sick, the minute that I could not stand behind the chair, I lost all of my revenue. I lost all of my income. And, the minute that I went on maternity leave, actually, and that's when my turning point in my career really, changed for me because I had to go on maternity leave. I only took about a 2-week maternity leave. I know hairstylists, you guys can totally relate with that. But I had to, that was my choice in front of me. I took 2 weeks because I had to get back to work and had to continue to produce the revenue because I was the primary revenue producer inside of my salon. And it took me in that moment to go, wow, hairstylists don't really have freedom. We throw that word around a lot, but we don't really have the freedom because our hands are tied to the amount of money that we make. And that's when everything changed for me. I started to recreate how salons are ran, especially for owners out there. I was the owner that was producing all of that revenue. So I had no freedom even as the owner because the minute that I stopped doing hair, my business also didn't produce any money. And so that was the moment for me that I said, this has to be different for not just the owner. This has to, I have to become not owner dependent inside of my business, but I also changed things for the stylist because at the time I had two very great stylists in my salon. They're still with me today, but it became very hard to look at them in the eye and say, this is the future for you. It's
Right.
client to client, and that's all that you have. And so that was the turning point for me. So I didn't find freedom until I created systems to solve that problem.
I love that. Yeah, so we're going to get more into those exact systems in a moment, and it sounds like in the chat there's a lot of people already resonating, but I do want to ask you guys, drop a note if this resonates. Does Tara's story feel familiar to you at all? That kind of lack of freedom, it's something I hear from owners a lot, so wonder if anybody's having kind of a gut like, yeah, I know that feeling. Kimberly's like, absolutely. Yeah. So we're going to chat a little bit about how we can hopefully solve some of this for you guys, but let's get into, what's actually happening inside of many salons right now. So, I think a lot of people in this audience maybe are going to resonate with this idea that you're kind of stuck somewhere between, let's say, 300 and 700K in revenue. Maybe you haven't hit that kind of moment yet, but you're working towards it. In this case, your books are full, you're working super hard, but you're struggling to kind of break through to that next rung of revenue and that next rung of freedom. So, what might be going on, Tara, in your view? What are some of the patterns you see that cause this kind of stalling?
Yeah, I mean, lack of systems. We build businesses not just as stylists behind the chair, but also as owners, just based off of what we can physically show up and produce every single day. And this is why salon owners, you guys are not scaling, because most of you are owner dependent because you produce most of the revenue inside of their salon. But not only that, what we've done, and just to kind of probably go ahead of this a little bit, but inside of the salon world and inside of stylists, we have been able to create new ways for them to produce revenue, and it's not them standing behind the chair. And I just want to plant the seed a little bit right now. Salon owners, the only way that you can scale is through people. It's through other hairstylists, and that's the only way. And so what we've done is we have taken our leaders and we've, our stylists, and we've made them leaders. And now they produce a new stream of revenue that's not them standing behind the chair, and it's revenue share based off of who they are training. So just to kind of plant that seed now, that's what I'm going to get into. And that's the future of the salon world, is how do we make money that's not just us physically tied behind the chair, but we have to add value to the salon in order for the salon to start scaling.
Yeah. Love that. And I think that's a super helpful seed to plant at this moment. And I'm curious, to kind of put a fine point on this, who here in the audience is currently the highest producer in your own salon? By the way, I think this is a pretty common story, so I wonder if people are feeling this way. Okay, we've already got a couple of yeses, a couple of I ams, and obviously, I think overall, nothing technically wrong with that, but there's things that we can do to help it make it so that your salon isn't running completely dependent on you. So we'll dive more into that as we get into the program. But Tara, this was a topic that we discussed when we were kind of like prepping for this webinar. You've kind of talked about and pointed out some like broken beliefs in the industry, from your perspective. So I'm curious, what does that mean to you? Like, what are some of these things that you think can kind of hold owners back?
Yeah, I think, and I read a comment earlier, and I'm sorry, I just cannot help but call this out. But someone said, what it's like to work minimum wage, but your company charges thousands of dollars to join your education program. Absolutely it does, because cheap isn't good. Cheap doesn't give value. And that's something that we should learn now, right? But I want to go back and make sure that I capture and I relate to you guys. Yes, I do know what it's like to work minimum wage inside of this, industry. But I also know what it's like to live in my clients' pocketbooks, right? And I think a lot of people hear that $750,000 behind the chair and they think, oh, wow, you must be in a big city, right? You must be no, I'm in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Look it up. It is, I always, laugh and say it's the armpit of America, but it's like 80,000 people. It's not a large town, and it's not necessarily up and coming. There's not a ton of young people. I will say, we talk about Fort Smith and we say it's a lot of old money, right? It's a lot of like older people. A lot of the younger people are moving off to different cities around us, which is totally fine. But my argument there is there are people with money everywhere, right? And what I learned early on is, hairstylists, especially in every industry. I'm not just trying to pick on hairstylists, but I feel like I really can, because I am one of you guys, right? I am a hairstylist, and we've all been raised from broken beliefs. I laugh at this story all the time. My mom is someone that tears dryer sheets at the dryer and throws one in and keeps the other. And I remember into my companies making, millions, I would continue to do that. I would still tear a dryer sheet and throw one in. And I tell that story a lot because a lot of times, because of our upbringing and the way that we're raised, we have broken beliefs. And it's not because we want to, and it's not because our parents, tried to spew that onto us necessarily, but it's just what happens in life, right?
Yeah.
And what I learned very early on in my career was there are people that want to pay for high ticket services everywhere. But, the only objection that you hear in sales is there's only one that's actually real. It's not because people can't afford it. It's not because they don't want to pay for it. It's not because, they want to talk to their husband, all of those things. It's because they don't see the value. And as
Yeah.
a hairstylist, you have to market yourself but to become the obvious choice. And so those people that want to come in and spend $3,000 on their hair, you are the obvious choice and they want to come in and do that. And so I learned early on that I just had a really broken belief. And that's why I lived in my clients' pocketbooks. I never wanted to raise my prices. You guys, I was the hairstylist that didn't raise the prices for years. Like I just was. Now I'm a hairstylist and my salon raises their prices 4 times a year. And it's just all on your mindset. And you guys, I'm here to tell you, until you're able to look in the mirror and go, you have a broken mindset. If you're meeting always with an objection, I can't raise my prices, my clients will quit me, all of these things, I promise you're the problem. And if you just would alter that mindset, you would get so much further in this career because that's not true. It's just a story that you're deciding to tell yourself. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah.
love that. I think that's such a great point. And I know that there's also a lot of these kinds of mindsets that influence, the way, we think the salon world should run and how salons typically run. And Tara, I'm wondering, when you think about those like old structures, the ways that certain people think about commission, again, obviously what works for your salon is what works for your salon. But I'm curious, how do you think about breaking some of those molds and things that, maybe you wish more people would kind of rethink when it comes to those structures?
Yeah, I mean, it takes having a good leader. I know someone asked this in a chat. I was just watching it, but I get in the room with other mentors that have a bigger belief lid than me, that are doing more than me. Speaking of paying for education, I've paid millions of dollars for my own education because someone that's actually built something, someone that actually has stats, that's the amount of money it takes to go get in those rooms. I will be
Yeah.
honest with you guys, I've drained my credit cards to get in the rooms with people that have built something larger than me. And that's the hack, is getting in front of those people and then consuming what they're saying and going, wow, the way that I think, the way that I operate isn't what's going to get me to the next level. And that's the hack. I wish it was more complicated than that because I think people want to hear that. They're like, oh, what's the secret? No, that's the secret. Just get around people that are doing more than you, and that's how you get to the next level.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm curious too when it comes to, structuring a salon to help people produce more. I know you mentioned that, like, obviously, and we're going to keep talking about this subject, but you need other people to help you succeed and help grow your salon. What are some of the baseline changes that people kind of have to make to stop themselves from getting stuck, and sort of not relying on their people to their fullest extent?
Totally. I think we have a very big misconception inside the salon world. We really preach this whole independent structure, and I'm here to tell you guys listening to this, I'm not against it. I really am not. I am living the American dream. I've built a 8-figure company. I have really maximized my not only time but obviously monetized this entire career. But I want you guys to think about something. Have you ever met someone that's become wealthy or made an impact that was a team of one? It You can't. Like it's just not a thing, right? And so we're better together, and that's what I have learned over the career is my career is you can only scale through people. And I've been able to duplicate, you go back to that $750,000 in revenue. Well, I've duplicated that into tens of, hundreds of stylists. And so they're able to create that same kind of career because of the impact. And so if you want to grow something big, you have to think about how you can do it through people, not just standalone stylists. And I think that's where we need a huge shift in this industry is go from thinking about you to think about how do you build a team? How do you impact other people, not just yourself? So
Yeah,
I hope that answered
definitely.
your question, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We'll get more into some of those systems that enable that. But let me move to our next slide here. So, we're identifying the problem here and some of the challenges and the things that are kind of keeping certain owners stuck. But you've built something that you feel really kind of helps fix this issue. So let's kind of dive into what you feel like the ideal system can look like in a salon setting, and what your kind of core model is that you like to suggest to people.
Yeah. So I think first of all, it's important for you guys to understand like, where I'm at, the stats, my salon. Right now I'm in the process of partnering with multiple salon owners all over the United States and expanding. My goal is to expand into, 50 salons in the next 36 months. So just so you know what I'm out to do. But my current flagship salon, it's about 850 square feet. So it's a shoebox, you guys. It is not anything miraculous. It's not, people hear these stats and like, whoa, you must have this great salon. No, no, no. It's 850 square feet. I have on average, 5 to 6 stylists. We do about $1.5 million and about 27% profitability. And the average revenue inside of my salon is $180,000. And that's what I'm most proud of. It's not the profit that I'm making as a salon owner, because I have another business that makes, 8 figures. And just to be honest with you guys. So I'm really proud inside that salon of what's happening inside of my stylist life. They're, mostly all taking home 6 figures. The only ones that aren't are the ones that came right out of my assistant program. Right out of our assistant program, our average stylist is doing around to $15,000 a month in revenue. And so the stats just aren't normal, and people often ask that. They're like, why, what is happening? It's the training, it's the systems that we've built. And that's what we now pour into other salon owners. And we teach them, hey, you can go repeat this and you can go, duplicate this inside of your own business, which is happening every single day. And, the one thing that sets us apart is this clear growth path. We don't just bring someone in and say, hey, good luck. Here's a chair, here's the tools, post on social media. Here's a few clients a month, like good luck. No, we have a very clear path into the future. Not only that, what I hated about being a hairstylist is the lack of stability. And, something I've learned through my career is most of and this is actually a statistic that was recently put out there, with job descriptions, the one word inside of the world of hairstylists that attracts people to a job is the word stability. And that's crazy to me because it's really what our industry doesn't offer. And so now, all of my stylists have a salary, which is a backstop, meaning they have a cancellation. Great. They still make that salary. They're still making that income. And they go on vacation. Great. They're still making the same income. They have, PTO. Not only that, we have tons of benefits. We do a 401k match. We invest into their future. We have health insurance. We do short-term disability. In my state of Arkansas, we're the only one of 2 businesses that do that, and the other one is Walmart. So that's like a big flex on my end. I'm so proud of that because short-term disability allows my mothers to go on maternity leave and be paid for that. And, go back to my beginning of my story. I took a 2-week vacation, or not vacation, but maternity leave, because I didn't have that luxury to be able to take 6 weeks off with my baby. I'll never get that time back. And I really hate that. But you guys listening can really, you guys hear, you've been there. Most of you have. And, building that for your team is what it takes in order to scale a salon. You can't just give someone a chair and expect them to be successful. It's give them that mentorship and, even moving up into that revenue share. That's what we do. Once you hit a certain revenue standpoint, you get revenue share off of everyone that you train, which allows the salon to continue to scale. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think it's a really interesting system. And again, I think, guys, what I love about, Terra is she's offering, an idea that works for some owners. And I see some great questions in the chat. And I think like, this idea of giving people, an exciting future that causes them to retain inside of the business, I think is kind of at the heart of why this has worked so well for you. Would you kind of agree with that,
Oh my
Tara?
gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't happen overnight. That's what I don't want anyone to be like, oh my gosh,
Right.
I had to grow into what I have now, so.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And so I am kind of wanting to pause here for 1 second too and share a little bit about, how the right tech, and I know, Tara, this is something that you chatted with me a bit about in prep, making sure that any system where you're trying to administer a broader kind of organization needs that backbone of technology to kind of help support it. So, the operational overhead that Tara is describing, and I think some folks are kind of, pointing to in the chat, like managing a growing team, tracking who's producing what, running payroll across different compensation structures. That can be, challenging, and where some owners start kind of drowning in admin. But GlossGenius can handle scheduling, staff calendars, and payroll automatically. Things like commissions, tips, hourly, however you prefer to manage your salon and are finding success, it all imports and calculates without a spreadsheet. So, for owners who are trying to kind of scale their leadership and, have time to actually mentor a team and foster that relationship and that retention of their team, this kind of helps support that. And having clean data on every team member's performance is also really critical here without having to do the math manually. So that can kind of free them up to actually lead too. So more on that later in some of those systems, but wanted to give a quick plug for that too. But
Absolutely.
yeah, let's get back to revenue growth for a second. So, I think owners here maybe are thinking about like what's the first move that maybe they should make if they're thinking about kind of scaling their stylist, right? So they're excited about this idea of, systems that can help their salon grow. What would be some of the first things they should think about when it comes to scaling their other team members?
Yeah, I mean, I think what our industry really gets wrong a lot of the time is we're really focused on metrics. I know, a lot of coaching companies out there and other, people that have maybe salon systems, it's really metric based, right? It's like, hey, how much can you come in and produce? Well, inside of Strata Salon Systems and what we've created for other salon owners, and those of you that are salon owners, you will love this. We have something called competencies, and you have to meet those in order to level up to the next level. And the very first competency that you have to meet as a assistant inside of our salon is how you respond when being coached.
Mm.
Imagine a world where your master stylist responded well when they were being coached, but imagine a world where your entry level stylists were like, heck yeah, thank you so much for that feedback. I love that. And you can imagine the growth after that, right? And so that's just a little bit of tidbit into what we don't just coach over metrics. We don't just like say, hey, meet this number. This is all it takes to be successful. No. We start at what it takes to be the human being that you have to be in order to be successful in this career. And so our system isn't all about numbers, which I love and I love to talk about, but it's all about like, who do you have to become in order to be successful? So
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, coaching is such an important piece. And I know we chatted about this a bit in our prep too, but this idea of coaching to the whole person and their goals and like, whether that's personal, professional, and so on. I find that that's something that's so incredibly helpful.
yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, well, another quick thought, when it comes to systems, we're chatting a little bit about, how GlossGenius can be supportive here too. Another way to win back some profit for yourself and your operators is to think about the revenue that might be sitting in clients you already have. So I'm curious if anybody here has found it kind of difficult to re-engage maybe lapsed clients, people who aren't rebooking. So another kind of quick win, speaking of getting started with some really amazing hands-on coaching for your staff, is maybe starting to not think about marketing as a task that competes with everything else on your plate, but instead becomes something that runs in the background consistently without requiring like a ton of mental energy at the end of every day. So I want to share that with GlossGenius. So for those of you guys who are members, AI marketing can draft personalized email and text campaigns based on your actual client data. And it even knows like who hasn't come back for 90 days, who just hit their 10th appointment, and which clients respond better to flash promos. So you just drop in like a few bullet points about what you want to say, and it writes the full campaign in your tone and your voice with no copywriting skills required. So for those of you guys who already use GlossGenius, if you haven't played around with this tool, something that you should maybe think about when we're kind of thinking about quick wins on the revenue side. But if you don't, this is maybe something worth exploring too. So, I think on the sort of statistics side here, we know that only 40% of clients who leave without a next appointment ever rebook on their own. So the other 60% aren't gone, they just haven't been prompted at the right moment. And automatic rebooking prompts at checkout are another way to kind of lock in that next visit while the experience is still fresh. And overdue clients can still get re-engaged by those texts and emails automatically, which is amazing too. And so, salons on GlossGenius can reach a 75% or more rebooking rate from what we've seen, which is really exciting, thanks in part to these kinds of automations. And so when we're talking about salons that are stalled in that, sort of 500K range, trying to reach a million, that retention lift can be really enormous. And so, Terra, I know on a similar tip, as we talk about statistics and ways to kind of improve, those revenue outcomes, you've mentioned to me that, folks who get involved and kind of do a system along the lines of what you're suggesting see a 30 to 50% jump in revenue, which is a really exciting metric. So any chance you could give us like a real example of someone you worked with and their kind of journey as they got up to speed with a new system?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I had a hairstylist come to me, and she was getting ready to open her own salon. The one thing that I teach, and this may resonate with you guys, I don't believe that you should ever become a salon owner until reaching that $150,000 to $200,000 in total revenue. And the reason why I say that is because that's what it takes in order to have multiple people produce that in order to scale a salon. And if you've not been able to do that yourself, it's very, very hard to train a team. You can't train someone to do something that you've never been able to do yourself.
Right.
And so I had a hairstylist come to me that, we had coached through scaling from, zero to $250,000 in revenue through high ticket services like hair extensions, of course. But a lot of it, was cut and color. And, she came to me and said, I'm going to open up a booth rental salon, and that's my plan. And I just said, hey, I think you should reconsider, because not that I have anything against booth rental salons. That's absolutely not it. But I want you to be able to mentor these people. I want you to have the funds and the profit in order to mentor this team that you are going to be able to attract. And because she followed Strata Salon Systems, she did $1 million at around 26 to 27% profitability in 1 year. First year. Yeah. And so that's what I love about working with salon owners, because being a profitable salon owner is okay. And those of you that are salon owners listening to this, it is okay that you make a profit, guys. You're not running a charity. Yeah. It's totally okay. So
yeah, no, I love that. Amazing. Well, I am going to move on to our next section here, which I don't know, I feel like it taps on a lot of things we've been talking about, which is data and access to data. So, I think when we were chatting originally, you have a take on this that I think maybe most owners haven't heard before, and it kind of goes well past the surface level metrics that folks talk about. So, Shara, from your perspective, what are some of the things maybe people aren't focusing on from a data and metrics perspective that they should be paying attention to now?
You guys, I'm just going to shoot you straight. One thing that you'll learn about me, I don't fluff things up. And sometimes I wish I could, but I don't want to. And so this is why it's so important to have a software like GlossGenius that can pull the data that you need to know. And data is freedom. Talk about freedom in this industry. Data is freedom, learning what is happening inside of your business in order to make the right decisions. And so I have data analysts inside of my business, and I'm so thankful for that, to be able to grow to that extent. But they're pulling from, a software just like, GlossGenius in order to grab this data. But we all have the same data inside of our industry. It's very, or our salons, because it's very, common inside the whole entire industry. But we tracked just last year in 2025, that if all our clients, you guys, not even talking about extension clients, high ticket, this is our color clients, which is an average of about $400, average ticket price. If they would have came 4 times per year and not 2.7 times, which is, just the data. I know you're like, how could someone come 2.7 times? Just the data, just how it works out, right?
Yeah.
We would have added another $950,000 onto our top line revenue. And this is why it's so important to work with a software like GlossGenius, because you guys can learn that and not, you can control your business. You can control what happens inside of your business, not just letting business happen to you. And so if I would have learned that data earlier on, I would have probably made a campaign, made a membership. I can think of so many ways to solve that data, right? And so that's why it's so important to work with someone like GlossGenius, because that's what will happen is you can learn these things early on. So
Yeah. We have a saying here at GlossGenius, which is you can't grow what you don't know, right? So how can you possibly succeed and grow if you don't have an awareness of those deep sort of nuances within your business? Kind of piggybacking on this story, I wonder, for you guys here in the audience, do you know your average client visit frequency? Does anybody here have an idea? Is it that 2.7 times a year? Is it 5 times? How many times a year does your typical client come in? If you don't know it, absolutely no judgment here. 8 times a year, Erica. Love that. That's strong. Amazing. So Erica's on it. And I wonder if anybody else is too from this perspective. But, I think getting back to, the story that you shared, Terra, the 950K that you were missing out on was already there. It wasn't an acquisition issue. It was a retention and frequency problem that nobody could see because they didn't have the sort of right insight at first. Do you think that a lot of salons are sitting on missed revenue like this right now?
Yeah, I think, and not, Erica, I love that you know that number,
Yes.
but I want to be like super clear on that. Do 40 to 50% of our clients come in 8 times per year? Absolutely. But it's that percentage that you're not really tracking.
Yeah.
The ones that we see all the time are the ones that are very, top of mind, right? We're the ones like, oh yeah, they come in, 6 to 8 times per year, which is amazing. But it's that percentage that we're not really thinking about all the time, especially when we grow a team and the owners aren't seeing every single client, come in every time. And so that is the life-changing revenue that happens inside of our business. And that's what I've learned, you guys. If you want to retain a stylist, track these numbers through a software like GlossGenius, and that's how you retain them, because they're not going to be able to go do that on their own, right? And so letting them know, hey, you have 40% of your clients that's come in, only 2.7 times. This is the campaign that we're setting up to solve that. We're bringing another several $100,000 of revenue back onto your books because this is what we're doing about it. And so you want to talk about retaining stylists, this is how. Help them grow the business. So
100%. I love that point. And I will say, for the GlossGenius members in the audience, you probably already know this. Hopefully you've already played around with the feature, but this is exactly what we built Growth Analyst for. And I love talking about Growth Analyst because I think it really does exactly this. It works like a data analyst for your business. Basically, you prompt it in plain English and it surfaces what's actually happening, which clients are overdue, which service providers have retention gaps, and where revenue might be leaking out of your, sort of leads there. It doesn't show you just a number. It actually tells you what to do about it. So, the example that Terra just walked through, that's the kind of insight that Growth Analyst is designed to catch before it becomes another year of like invisible lost revenue. Not to mention, we also have key insights that are actually delivered to you proactively. So even if you're not prompting and digging around, you will get some tips from day to day that will hopefully help you plus up your income, which is really exciting too. So, what I've seen my time in the industry is that there's a gap between here's your data and here's what to do about it. And so, a lot of software falls short there. We're really obsessed with the idea of bridging that gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll say too, another exciting tactic that you can try with GlossGenius and kind of goes back to the previous tools we mentioned on the marketing front, is that the fix for some of these retention issues can run automatically with the help of these systems. So, for example, if a client hasn't booked in 12 weeks, GlossGenius can retrigger an engagement text or email on your behalf, written in seconds, sent automatically. So, all kind of in one seamless flow. And it kind of catches those clients who were meant to come back but just got busy. No manual chasing, no spreadsheets that you have to manage on your own. This is all data that's inside of your system that you're able to pull and action super quickly. So, for a salon that's trying to close that retention gap that Tara described, this can be like an extremely helpful lever that kind of brings things together very simply, which is, excellent. So again, data is one piece. The other piece is who's in the building doing the work. So the next thing we're going to chat a little bit about is hiring, which I know, I feel like at every webinar, we get so many hiring questions, and who you hire has a huge impact on what you can build. So, we always get this question, how do I find the right people? What does a hiring process that is really excellent look like? And Tara, I'm curious what your perspective is here.
Oh my gosh, you guys. I just want to start by saying I was the salon owner that hired anyone with a heartbeat. I'm like, cool, you're breathing? Amazing. Come on in. I've learned after a decade of being a salon owner that that's not, someone has to truly align with your vision and what you're building. And now, something that we roll out with our salon owners inside of Strata Salon Systems is a 3-step hiring process. And it's very, very calculated. I cannot explain it any other way, right? But I think where a lot of salon owners go wrong is we do a lot of, selling, right? It's like, please come work here. We have a great culture. We're like family here. We get along in the break room, and that's just not what's going to bring in the people that are truly aligned with what you're building. And so, we have a 3-step, like I said, the 3-step process. The first step is a cultural interview that we ask them very tough questions. And do we spend time selling our vision? Yeah. But I would say, they have it listed here, but a 20%, selling your vision and what you're building and why people should be aligned. But 80% is, are they a good fit? Are they someone that can actually come into your environment and, propel it forward, right? Because we all know what it's like to have that stylist inside of our salon that pulls us backwards. And so asking the right questions and making sure that they are the good fit in order to, make sure that the salon is a success. And I've done that wrong for so many years, is I've just hired people with a heartbeat. I'm like, yes, you look the part maybe, but it turns out 6 weeks into it, you're not the right part. Yes. You're not the right fit, and you don't fit the part. So yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think there's an excellent point here too around, you can't pitch something amazing unless you've built something amazing and you have those stats to back it up. So, back to the data, super important too.
Absolutely. And I think something to add there, because this is such an important part for salon owners, is, you have to have a stat as a salon owner. You have to, and those of you that have a hard time maybe building that team, think about that. Like when I bring in a stylist right now, I'm able to say, hey, in 18 months, I can make you a multiple 6-figure stylist because I have the stats to back that up, right? I have proof right in front of you. And don't let me discourage you by saying that. Go build the stat. Go focus on 1 or 2 stylists that you can make a success story, and then use that over and over in the interview process. And that's going to attract, because people want to win, and winners want to hang out with winners. So
I love that. That's an excellent point.
absolutely.
And so, when Tara talks about backing up that pitch with infrastructure, again, just a place where clean business data matters and those back end systems matter. So, if you can show them, an awesome prospect, what your top stylist produced last year, what their take home looked like, how retention has grown, that's not a story. That's like real hard evidence. So, love that we can help make that data pitch become more concrete. And so once the right people are in the building, retention on your team becomes like the next job. Like we know it's super expensive to lose a stylist and retrain a new one, right? How do you think about keeping the people you've invested in? Like, what are the things that you've done that keep the greatest assets on your team in seat?
You guys, you have to have, someone asked, what do you mean by a growth path?
Yeah.
So, I have multiple stylists inside of my salon producing multiple six figures. In the world of stylists, their next step would probably be to go open their own salon, right? I mean, that's just, I'm going to call it like it is. I'm going to make probably some of you salon owners be like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable, because you may have some people inside of your salon right now, hitting up against that wall of success, and what is their next step, right? And I just want to plant this for you guys. If you're not telling them what their next step is and painting that vision, but also laying it out for them, they are going to leave. And I get this all the time. Salon owners like, it's okay that people leave. Of course it is, you guys. That's the name of the game. People will leave your business. But I know, as I've built for the last 10 years, I've got people inside my salon that I don't want to leave, because if they do leave, I can't scale as fast, because they are such a key asset. They bring in a ton of revenue. Not only that, they're great leaders. I've built them, right? And so if I don't give them a reason to stay, why would they stay?
Right.
So what I'm building, we go back to that belief-led talk. Think about this. You've got you here and you've got your key players here. If your belief-led doesn't outpace them, they're going to, hit up against you, and their only option is to leave and continue going, right? And so I have to continue to build something that's bigger and bigger than those people in order for them to even have a reason to stay. And so let me simplify that really fast. Make them partners, expand with them, make it make sense. Don't just keep them as a stylist and keep them small, because people don't want that long term. They want to build an asset. They want to build a business of their own. And so allow them into that, but make it make sense. Don't do that prematurely. Make sure that, that does make sense on the business end. So
I love that. Excellent advice. You got to give loyalty to get loyalty, and vice versa. It's a nice, beautiful loyalty engine.
absolutely.
Amazing. So, again, just a quick kind of note here. We talked a little bit about teams management and how systems are critical. Leading a team without being in every single conversation, without having to manage everything on such a granular level, requires two things, leaders doing day-to-day management and a platform that handles the administrative layer automatically. So again, it's really possible to put scheduling, payroll, and performance reporting on autopilot. We do know that owners on GlossGenius cut more than 40 hours of monthly admin thanks to systems like this. So, that time can actually go toward things that build the business, coaching the team, doing that vision casting, and opening your next location, even all things that become more possible when you've put some of those more difficult and sort of time costly items on an automated basis. And so, so many fun and interesting insights from this event. I know we are so close to time, which is crazy. Time has literally flown by. I want to save some time for Q&A and a couple of other items. So let me really quickly flash up a couple of quick things for the group here. So 2 opportunities, first of which is up on the screen now. So Terra has an incredible free breakpoint quiz that's going to help you see where your salon is at right now. If you're interested in learning a bit more about Strata Salon systems and discovering what's maybe standing between you and your next level of revenue, I would really recommend checking out Terra's free breakpoint assessment. You can scan this code here to access it. Terra, do you have any things that you want to share about this?
Yeah, I would love to just quickly explain, kind of what this is, as a $15 million business owner, I have understood what it takes to build a business, right? Imagine your business is a skyscraper. And if you build a skyscraper without those foundations and those systems in place, what's going to happen to that skyscraper? It's going to come tumbling down, which is why, salon owners have walkouts, which is why salon owners, crumble after certain revenue points. And so what this breakpoint quiz does is it shows you what your break point is, meaning if you're at X amount of revenue, it shows you exactly what you should be working on and what you should put in place in order to scale to the next level of revenue. So we've made it really simple. We have engineered the salon, world and the salon business in order to be able to scale. And that's exactly what it is. And so I would love to help you guys in order to help you scale and build a team.
Love that. And thank you so much, Tara. That's amazing. Folks, so this is your chance. Tatum from Tara's team threw the link in the chat too, so feel free to follow it directly. Or you can, again, scan the code and take a look. I am going to flip over to our next slide here. So this is my second quick plug before our Q&A. If you're interested in learning more about GlossGenius and how it can help power you towards less time spent on admin and more revenue, you can book a free personalized demo with our team of in-house product experts right here. So this is a little scan. Again, similarly, feel free to scan. I'm going to drop a quick link for y'all too. If you want to follow it this way, you are more than welcome to. But if you haven't already explored GlossGenius, today might be a good day to get some time on the calendar with the team. So go for it. And just saying, businesses on GlossGenius earn 65% more on average. So as you're thinking about those next levels of growth, please, I implore you, check it out. I hope it will be a good resource for you all. But moving right along, because we have 5 minutes left. Oh my God. Let's cover some questions. So if you guys have any burning ones, would love for you to drop them in the chat. I did see one from Lauren that might be kind of fun to cover around hiring. I knew this was going to be an area where we get some questions. Where are you finding stylists, Tara? Where do you recommend, and how do you recommend connecting with like amazing styling talent?
I saw this question and I was like, please let me answer this because it's because I am with you, Lauren. Oh my gosh. Until you understand how to kind of like crack that code, it is so hard, because if you're building something, with high standards and, where you want it to be a certain way, it's not always easy to find that very perfect person in order to come into your business. But my advice here is, salon owners, you are not attracting clients anymore. So stop marketing to them. Market to the hairstylist. Market to them about how great it is to work in your salon. There's no better asset than having your stylist talk about on social media how great it is to work at your salon. What are the benefits that you're giving to them? And so if you will, follow me and follow my salon and follow some of, my key players inside of my salon, they talk to the other hairstylists. They don't really talk to other clients. They're talking about how great it is to work at my salon. And so understand, through a marketing perspective, you're marketing to other hairstylists, not clients anymore as an owner. So
That's so interesting. Yeah, and thanks, Violet, for clarifying. Janine asked a question around commission salons versus booth rental. I will say GlossGenius definitely works well for those booth rental salons too, so don't count us out on that side of things. So yeah, just flagging that too for you guys. Let's see if there's more questions in the audience. Okay, so Kaylee asked, I think, a very sweet question, Tara, which I'm happy to have you answer. What's next in your salon ownership journey? What's next in your business journey? What's going to happen? Are you opening more salons?
What a loaded question. So something I hate about this career is, and I know it's like, why would you open with that? Guys, just know that I always shoot you straight. We are in the midst of a $60 billion industry. There is no reason why hairstylists and salon owners cannot build wealth. I don't mean a good job. I mean wealth. And so what I'm building right now is the most exitable wealth transfer salon platform of salon owners and their stylists that this industry has ever seen. And so you can follow me on Instagram, or you can be a part of it. If you are part of Strata, that's exactly what I do, is I teach other salon owners how to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm not interested in being rich anymore. I want my team to be rich. And I think other owners can relate with that. I want my team to win more than anyone in this industry ever has. And so that's what I'm creating as a way for that to happen. So
I love that. Yeah. Daniel asked a question. I think you kind of answered this as you were saying it. But Daniel's question is, how much of what worked for you was specific to your market versus stuff you think works anywhere? I think that's kind of an interesting one. I'm curious how you feel about that.
What I do works anywhere. I live in a town of 80,000 people, and the median household is $35,000, you guys. So whatever I'm doing works anywhere. And that's what I love, what I teach, because I can bring in people and even a little bit, larger, areas than me, and they just go win so quickly because I am really in the armpit of America, and I can teach anyone how to win very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And it kind of reminds me, guys, if you've ever seen our GlossGenius webinar with Mark Mendez, he made some amazing points around this exact same thing. Small town doesn't mean small revenue, right? You can succeed no matter where you are, which I think is such an excellent point. And so let me see. Another maybe 1 to 2 more questions, I think at most. Amy had, I think, kind of an interesting one. Amy was speaking on her story. She has 3 chairs. She's in a small space, 750 square feet. She wants to grow, but she doesn't know what the right next move is. And she's saying, I'm debt free. I don't want to like get into a ton of debt trying to kind of move things forward. Any like thoughts on things that Amy could do to kind of have a quick win there?
Yeah. So I have someone in a 3-booth salon right now doing around $750,000 in revenue at around almost 30% profit. And so don't go into debt to expand right now. Maximize your space because it can happen. And it's all about the systems. It's all about the processes. It's all about the stylist maturity model, the growth path of your teammates. And that's what we do inside of Strata Salon Systems is we teach them how that works. So
amazing. Well, we are just about at time here. I know there's so many amazing questions. I hope that this was so helpful for you guys. I'm going to flip back really quickly to our QR slides just so that you guys can see them. First, let me share Terra's Breakpoint quiz again. Please feel free to jump in there. You can scan this code to take a look at it. Really, really excited that we were able to chat today, Terra. And yeah, Jaren, very excellent point. Thanks, Terra, for taking time out of your vacation to teach us today. That is so kind of you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. And I will tell you guys, I've worked with so many different software companies, and no one has been as great as far as, a servant heart into this industry as GlossGenius. So you guys are in the right place. And what an incredible opportunity to be able to have a software that gives you the data in order to scale, in order to know exactly what to do to fix the problems inside of your business in order to win. So
thank you, Terra. That means so much. Thank you guys so much. We are grateful you spent some time with us too. Hope everybody has an excellent rest of your day. And don't forget to check out GlossGenius. Don't forget to check out Terra after this. Thank you guys.
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.